You are not even aware of your ego. So, and there is something beautiful that is created.
One problem with the ego is that it is never self-sufficient. Therefore, it keeps claiming, but is always uncertain about its claims. Therefore, it needs validation. What is lacking is honesty, to admit that the beauty is gone.
What do you mean by this intent?
When I say honesty, when I say intent, exactly the same thing. Intent has very little to do with understanding. It's a thing of...
Namaste, Acharya Ji. So my question is based on the earlier two discussions. So when you see the movement of your consciousness moving from the states of bhogi to jnani to tapasvi to yogi, so your consciousness is moving between these states, and when you are in a state when you can't even, when the you are not even aware of your uh, ego. So, and there is something beautiful that is created uh, in the emptiness, which we have mentioned or discussed in earlier sessions. And there is something beautiful or creative, some is created. And when the ego is regained in that state, after that state, when when the consciousness comes, or the ego regains itself, it clings to that which is created, and it starts corrupting that which is created, and it starts owning that I have created this, and it starts corrupting it. So it starts owning it. So, and it doesn't even realize that it hasn't created it, but it starts owning it. And you, as a consciousness, sees this movement that, but, and you interfere that no, this is the ego hasn't done this. My ego doesn't have hasn't done this, but you are seeing this movement. So coming back to the previous discussion, be a watcher. So watching is not good enough. What is the disappearing that you mentioned in the earlier discussion? How do you disappear?
Again, honesty. Whatever was there that you are calling as beautiful, if the ego needs to own it, name it, control, possess it, that simply indicates the absence of it, right? Was there this kind of ownership and possessiveness when the ego had lapsed, even if for a while? So the beauty and the lapse went together, right? When the ego returns, going by the framework you have described, when the ego returns, the beauty is obviously gone. Therefore, now the ego will stick to the memory and the images and label them. So the ego already knows that the beauty is gone. The very sticking, the very ownership is proof that the ego already knows that the beauty is gone. What is lacking is honesty, to admit that the beauty is gone.
So coming back to that previous discussion, that intent is missing. So what do you mean by this intent? How?
Same thing. When I say honesty, when I say intent, exactly the same thing.
So how does one develops that? Is that development, or how does that come in one?
Somebody tell me. Somebody tell me. I'll not need the foundation anymore. This entire huge structure is needed only because the participants are not honest enough. Seriously. Why does one need 500 people ringing you all the while? Why does one need a huge IT structure? Why does one need to write this, remember that, register this? Why? If there is honesty, none of this is needed. I will not need to chase you. You will simply be present. So, somebody tell me how to generate honesty.
I mean, just today in the afternoon when I was working on something, I sort of went so deep into my work and created something. And I thought of this question when I returned to my senses that, okay, this is something beautiful. But when I return to my senses, my ego starts owning it. And I realized that I need to ask this to Acharya Ji. And just today or tonight, I get to ask this question to you.
See, the one problem with the ego is that it is never self sufficient.
Yes.
Yeah. Therefore, it keeps claiming, but is always uncertain about its claims. Therefore, it needs validation. The validation, first one, comes from itself. The ego is the claimant and also the validator. Yeah? So, deny yourself validation. When the ego says, I did it, I experienced it, I own it, tell yourself, no, you do not. Dismiss yourself. Learn to insult yourself. Moment you
And during that thought, that Kabir Sahab's doha came to my mind that uh, Purza Purza Kat Mare To Bina Chhade Ke, that I have to fight now with myself for this. And now again, that is coming to me that this is a fight with myself. Is this the intent? Is my understanding correct over here?
intent has very little to do with understanding.
Okay.
Hmm? It's a thing of basic human dignity. I can only pinch you, prick you, provoke you into asking, why must you forfeit it? Why must you choose to crawl and suffer? That's the maximum. I mean, you still choose uh, crawling, you still choose bondages. One has to decide for himself. When I started out, I had this boyish enthusiasm. We are all conscious beings. Everybody deserves liberation. Now, uh, I see that intent itself is merit. So, yes, existentially, everybody deserves liberation. But psychologically, very few choose it. Some strange monster very frequently succeeds in convincing us that life is better in the darkness, as if we are bats. Hmm? Think of the human being as a bat. Somebody has convinced him that life is better in the dark cave. The mighty sun can keep shining and yelling outside, the bat is convinced that the cave is the place. And the sun cannot forcibly enter the cave. For the sun to even talk to the bat must come out in the open, and that needs intent. Now, that's the missing link. That bridge is extremely difficult to build. The sun cannot enter the cave. The bat won't come out in the sun. The engagement itself won't happen. So there continues this very shady equilibrium called life, where darkness remains as the reality and light too remains as the possibility. And there is this very unfortunate equilibrium. Both coexist. You can't drag the bat out of the cave, can you? Even if you do that, what would the bat do? Somebody teach me how to make the bat fall in love with the sun. Or somebody teach the sun how to enter the cave. The cave is the personal space.